here.
Someone was playing and did the Megaton quest, and it was priceless. He just hit the switch, and you see the mushroom cloud in the background. He just sort of sat back in his chair, and with this big smile on his face. And then he checked his Pip-Boy to check his karma. It said evil. I said, yep, that'll do it.
That's a pretty big element in the game. When you do something evil, we've tried to make it very visually entertaining, and then the game tells you, you've lost karma, you're a bad person. That was a lot of the reason we wanted to make it, that it was, oh, this is just so cool. And the pushback that I would get, that's like 10 years old. I'm like, cool is cool forever, man. This is gonna be cool 50 years from now.
In terms of art design, Fallout 3, we had several goals. One of them was to be true to the original games and to sort of, look at those as inspiration, but at the same time updated to various standards as far as the technology goes, and also just kind of inject a lot more realism and detail that you expect in a primarily first-person game. But as far as the aesthetics go, it definitely was a challenge in terms of creating a huge, destroyed, devastated world that was still pretty, fun to explore, and felt like the DC area.
I try to draw what I see in my head, and the part that I see the clearest I tend to draw first. So I try to make things very story-driven, and that'll help me when I'm really, really stumped. I'll say, all right, what do I see in my head? And all right, if we got Ward Cleaver and he's kind of scared, but he found some whiskey and a shotgun. All right, things start to coagulate, and I think a lot of times these characters and situations are really, for me, they're found. And I feel like I'm documenting something that I found, and if it's unclear, it's because, well, I haven't quite found it yet.
In terms of the art specifically, we were kind of given a lot of liberty to sort of decide how we want to reinterpret the game, because there's really so much you can do. Jumping up from 64 by 64 pixel sprites to full screen things. So a lot of it was just based on instinct in terms of the artist, and if we're going to redesign a certain character, if we were going to take Mr. Handy and what's the new Mr. Handy going to look like? It's like, we wanted a connection there, but at the same time we want to do something new and take it in a new direction, give it a new spin, just to make it feel a little more fresh.
I have an interest in all things 50s because I think there's a certain charisma with the music, with the automobiles, with the clothing style, the sort of jet set Frank Sinatra Rat Pack in a flying car with a martini in one hand and he's going to a big band concert. There's something that's always fun about that. And so designing any of these characters and then throwing them into the wasteland, the dark humor kicked in for me when I imagined Ward Cleaver being pushed out of his bunker, and now he's in the wasteland and he's looking for fresh tobacco for his pipe, and here comes a raider over the top of the horizon. What better kind of thing to draw do you have? I mean, that's a comic book in itself.
In the game design, there's an underlying tone of humor which is appropriate for the franchise, for Fallout. It's definitely a staple of it. How we reflect that in the artwork is more subtle, but there are little things that, for example, we were trying to come up with a list of, all right, what sort of objects and clutter items can we use in our urban landscape in DC, just to fill it up, to clutter it up. And our concept artist, Adam, came up with, he did a sketch of like a coin-operated fallout shelter. It's just like a little steel tube that if you put 50 cents in, go in, close yourself in, you're in a little one-person fallout shelter in case the bombs happen to drop when you're out shopping in downtown or something like that. And it's a ridiculous idea, but it's thematically very appropriate for sort of like the culture of the time period, the 1950s kind of naivete that we were trying to achieve. The world is more focused in that it's a very specific area, sort of DC and sort of the surrounding suburbs. It's a large-scale map, and it's a pretty huge world, but it's very tight in that it's basically one region. It's very cohesive.
I was thinking of setting it on the West Coast. Emil really pushed, oh, we should do it out here. And I was like, oh, I don't know. I don't know if that's the right Fallout feel, But the more we thought about it, it was, oh yeah, we got to. Who can blow up Washington, D.C. better than us?
If you look at the Fallout universe, it was necessary to make a split to take the series where we wanted to go with it, you wanted to get away from the West Coast. You want to get away from the playground that we knew in 1 and 2. So we came all the way over here. It's what we know. And then there's just a lot of great symbolism in having DC in a post-nuclear landscape. There's lots of great architecture that we all know and love from the area, so it was just a natural fit, I think.
I spend a lot of my time on weekends going through DC with a digital camera. And when you're going around the White House taking pictures of manhole covers, people want to know why you're taking pictures of manhole covers around the White House. And I always thought to myself, well, my answer would be very simple. I'm just imagining what this would all look like if it was blown up.
We spent a lot of time trying to figure out how the wasteland around here would actually look. And going and visiting buildings they had knocked down in DC. They knocked down a few buildings, and we would go and click, 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 just to see what destruction down there would look like.
For me, a lot of times when you design the architecture, and especially in a sci-fi sense, and then you walk down that street, there's a lot of material for you to play with. Looking at a lot of buildings, I would walk in Adams Morgan and I'd see a cluster of houses and I'd say, wow, that's amazing. All right, we put a lot of chrome flanges on them, but just the configurations of things would give you ideas, and one would bounce off of the other, so it was a continuous process.
We were able to really stick to the modern vision of DC with just these quirks, this Art Deco stuff that never existed in our world that would have existed in their world if we extrapolated on what these people and their core values were important to them. So the Googie architecture and stuff like that, that all appears. It's there on the sides of the buildings, and it's sort of tacked on. So you'll see an ancient neoclassical building that's got metal barricading just sheeted onto the side of it in case of a nuclear strike, like profiteering third-party companies putting the coin-operated vault shelters on the side of the street so you can put a quarter in case there's a blast and hide in there. Just lots of neat little things like that we try to do.
The landmarks we use and the flavor of it, if you're from around here, there's enough of it where you get it, but not so much that it's any sort of handicap to someone who isn't. And the fact that we kind of had an alternate history helped a lot. So because the Fallout universe splits around 1950, we could take great liberties with DC. So we have all these books in Washington, D.C., so that the things that were pre the time when we split, we're careful about after that. If a certain thing was built after that, we try actually not even to have it. Or we'll build it in a different way, in a way that we think suits the game better, and our excuse can be, well, in our timeline, they built it different.
All the majors are there, right? We've got the Jefferson, plays a big part, the Washington, the Lincoln, the Capitol, the White House. More contemporary stuff like the Air Force Memorial obviously wouldn't be there in their world. But we do try and capture inspirations of some things.
We have so much fun doing this. It's almost a guilty pleasure for us. It really is the best job in the world. So it's like you feel kind of guilty in the game or like in the Capitol building fighting super mutants and body parts are blowing up. And it's just a big joke. You know what I mean? It's pure escapist entertainment. It's crazy, and you try not to get wrapped up on the seriousness of it.
It's a massive world, and there's a lot of small elements that have to be individually created, which will all come together at some point to sort of finish off the spaces, all the cluttering, all the architecture, all the environments, the lighting, the effects. There are so many elements, and that, a lot of it is just kind of, guessing, okay, whoops. That was a big one.
This morning, a major storm swept through the area. There were 4 separate reports of tornadoes across the region.
Get back to that messaging.
You don't need computers. Draw it up. Where are you going?
Build the triangles and frame rate.
We had some electric storms pass through and basically down power lines, trees went down. It was pretty insane. We lost power for a good, I would say about 8 to 10 hours. It happened around 3 o'clock yesterday. It's a little weird because usually, when it rains around here, we do lose power for like a brief 2-3 minutes. So, it was kind of like business as usual, but then the power never came back.
At this point, I don't see a lot of changes affecting data side. No one should be waiting on that. And if it's that important, we'll bring it up.
We have a big milestone coming up next week. So that meeting actually was all about how do we get the game ready for this milestone. And, there are people who will stay here as late as they need to and to get stuff done. We've had stuff like this happen before. We've put builds on planes and flown people, to save time. It's amazing the things that you'll do to get things done.
When the power went out the other day, a bunch of us went over to let's get out of here, the power's out. So we went over to the supermarket, and the power was out there. But they had enough emergency power to run the cash registers. So they're feel free. You can buy whatever you want, but all of the aisles are dark. So I start walking the aisles, and I you know, did you have like a, you know, Starbucks bottle thing? Something? I need some coffee. So we start wandering the aisles. It's all pitch black, and I'm using my iPhone as like a flashlight. And I said to one of the guys, like, "This is how the world ends, man. This is cool." Like, we're in the game. Like, what else should we get? And one guy's like, antibiotics. You know, like, get antibiotics before food. And we're like working it out in the aisle at Safeway just the other day. So yeah, sometimes it creeps in your head.